Hey, everybody, it's Tuesday noon. It means it's time for Building Wins Live. Great show today with a great friend of mine, George Henderson. You're not going to want to miss this. You're going to love George. Be right back. There he is. Hey, my brother.
What's up, brother?
How you doing, friend?
I'm doing awesome. How about you?
Good. Sitting there, all dapper. I should have dressed for the event. I missed the dress code. It's my show, but I missed it.
I was going to have a tie on just in your honor, but
Well,
then my neck
both...
started getting a rash.
Well, I have some braces, which a lot of people, you would know, the dapper man that you are, that braces are different than suspenders, right? And
exactly.
I have a set. I could have put my suit on my braces and looked really good today, but you know.
Yeah, but then they would be looking at us like, with a clown car, with braces.
Exactly. Kellen Ann's on already. Look at she's number one. You get an A. Barry, what's up, brother? So George, thank you for being on first. So folks, I'm going to do a brief intro. I usually would do that before. I just wanted to get George on screen so everybody could look at his handsome face. So George has become, in the last year's time, one of my favorite people. He's become a brother, a buddy, a pal, a confidant, and all virtual. We've never actually met in person. We almost did, but I got into trouble and was a bad boy and didn't go to Kansas City. But anyway, we're going to rectify that soon. But George is going to tell us a little bit about himself, but he's got 40-some years of experience in the IT, counterintelligence, security, cybersecurity. I mean, the guy's, I'm not going to say anymore because I don't want him to have me taken out with a little drone. So anyway, George, thank you for being on, number one. Thank you for being my brother and my friend. And tell us a little bit about who is George.
Well, thanks first for having me, Randy. It's always a pleasure to see my brother. And thanks for everyone else for just listening in. As Randy said, I've been in the IT industry for a long time, many different disciplines. I've worked both throughout the United States. I've worked overseas, lived overseas, but probably the last 10 to 15 years really focused and concentrated most of my time on cybersecurity, counterintelligence, disaster recovery, and that's something that I really gravitated towards. So it's really helping both people as well as companies mitigate risk, protect themselves, ensure their privacy, and make sure that, to the best of their abilities, that they're protecting their businesses. And, for individuals and friends, I've helped them as well for themselves and their families and loved ones.
Perfect. So you live on the Eastern Seaboard. I don't know if you want to say where, but you live on the East Coast.
I do. I live in Annapolis now.
Yeah. Near or on the beautiful Chesapeake Bay, right?
Near the bay, but today I'm actually on the bay at a friend's house, so it's a pretty good view, to be honest with you.
Nothing wrong with it. Well, so George and I, folks, we met, as we said, about a year ago, maybe just under, in a mastermind group that we both belong to, Megaminds, and we've managed to meet some incredibly great people. As I think I've mentioned in the past, my director producer Wes, who's sneaking around the back room somewhere, is there keeping me out of trouble. Is also a member of this group. So, we might talk about mastermind groups and the value of that if we get further into this whole thing. But let's talk really, we're in a time frame, and my audience, well, let me back up. My audience, George, as you probably know, because we've chatted about it, you know what I do. Mm-hmm. We're all small businesses. We're not multi-billion-dollar companies. We're all small businesses. And so a lot of folks would probably say, I don't need to worry about what George Henderson is going to talk about because cybersecurity, that's all for the big boys, right? I'm kind of guessing I'm wrong with that, correct?
Yeah, you absolutely are. I mean, the one thing I like to say to people, especially for the small and medium enterprises, small businesses, that security is a lot more than just a lock on your front door. I mean, you really got to ensure that you're doing the things that can protect your business, both physically as well as logically. So, think about it, the places that you said about your clients, they all probably have facilities, and some of them probably have yards with, you know, so much inventory and materials. And, when they leave, they're just going to make sure that that's physically protected. There's going to be locks, there's going to be cameras, there's going to be things on it. Well, think about it, from a logical standpoint, and the systems and the computers and the things that you run your business on. You all have PCs, you all, probably your sales team, they're all carrying laptops with them, and you probably have laptops yourselves. So you have to have the same diligence that you would in a physical sense to make sure that you protect yourself and ensure that you're going to, mitigate risk to the best of your ability. And really, that's what it is. When I talk about security to people, it's really defining and understanding what your appetite for risk is. And I try to translate something or correlate to something that's, very common. People might compare security to life insurance. Well, how much is good enough? You have to determine that. Nobody else can say, yeah, you could talk to advisors or brokers or things like that. And they may say, well, based on, your net worth or that, you may want to have a policy with this much. But at the same time, I think it's a little bit different from a security standpoint, because what is the information to be able to maintain and run your business truly worth? That's a little bit different.
Yeah. And I would say the risk over the last year, in my way of thinking, George, is that we've just drastically increased that risk, probably 10x, with all the remote work we're all doing, right? It's one thing to be whatever security you may have, if you have even a little in your facility. Now all of a sudden you got sales guys out, maybe working from home, never coming to the office. You got accounts payables, accounts receivables. You got controllers. You got a lot of people with some pretty important stuff going back and forth, right? So I mean, is it worse now even than it was a year ago?
I mean, I wouldn't say it's worse now. I think the risk have certainly gone up exponentially. But I think, the one thing, the whole notion of working from home, that was never built nor optimized to be on par with what the work environment was, or the networks that people would use it at offices or corporate offices, or whichever office, you would report to. But because of the environment as it is today, a lot of changes have to be made. So they are definitely getting better. They still have a ways to go, but that trend is going to continue because, as you and I have talked about many times, the whole notion of the way that work is conducted today, especially with people being virtual, that's going to continue. If anything else, it'll probably continue to grow even more. And, it's not going to be a 50-50 proposition. It's probably going to be more 60-40 or something of that. Certainly from people that I talk to, from very large multinational corporations to small to medium enterprises, they realize that the dynamics of their workforce and the distribution of their workforce is going to continue to evolve and change over time.
So with that, two things. One is I want to talk about the remote and what you're seeing in the big business world, but because I know you shared some interesting things about being in the city like New York and so forth. But back before I lose track of this, so where does a person go? Because I'm thinking to myself, I would go to my brother George, at least to start, to direct me. But where would my metal roofing contractor customer, my metal roofing roll former contractor, the lumber yard, where would they start if they're sitting here right now and saying, boy, I listened to George and Randy today, and holy crap, I'm a little bit worried about this. I don't feel I'm very protected, right? Where do they start? Where would be the starting place? Because I mean, I'll be honest with you, if I didn't know you as well as I do, I'd be sitting here going, I'd be Googling security, I guess. I don't know where I would go. So does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I mean, but that's really not a bad suggestion to people, especially in their local, demographic areas, because there are a lot of experts. But once again, so I know companies that it might be a 10-person shop, and they've identified somebody that helps set up their systems, and they've been able to add and build a security as part of that solution that they have for their company. Other companies could be, from 10 to 25 to 50 people organizations, and they have what they call managed service providers. So these are companies that actually they would contract and they would provide the security services and the IT services for maintaining their network, maintaining their computers, and maintaining the security and the robustness of their environment. And they do that as a service. And if you think about it, I've had people, even, we could use your industry, for example, is they're experts in metal and roofing and building pole barns. They don't want to be IT experts, nor should they have to be. So if they don't have the resources internally within, there are third-party resources available that could help in that regard.
Okay. So let's see. I see what George or what did Mark say? Will workplace intensify or nullify? Where do you see corporate America going in terms of the current and future workplace? That our brother and friend Mark. Can you read that on there, George?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, then I won't read it because.
Yeah, so Mark, I think I don't know if it's going to be either intensifying or nullifying it. I mean, from where it's at today. So, for example, and I know this is an extreme, but I know a CFO, that I've spoken with, that he's responsible for a global multinational company, and they've got offices around the world, some of which they own, some of which they lease and rent like everybody else. And he said to me that, goes, George, at best, if 40% of the workforce return to the office, that's probably going to be a high number. So that's an extreme. Then I know of others that, and I've actually talked with, some of the people in our group where they feel like, hey, there's people that are just not going back to their offices. There's probably a truism and there's some truth to that. But then there are others that are going back. And I know companies, now these are the companies that had foresight that when this whole pandemic started and they started hearing about what's the impact to the workforce and the workplace, they actually started building out the new office about what it's going to look like. And for example, there's a company in Baltimore that when you approach the front door of the building, you don't touch anything with your hands. It basically acknowledges and recognizes that you're looking to get entry, and the doors open up automatically. When you walk in, you have a person that's behind the desk, and she's standing there with a thermometer taking your temperature. And then you walk in, and you go into the actual place, and now it looks like a re-layout. And they're trying to be as both empathetic and understanding to the people, because you got to work there, 8, 9, 10 hours a day, whatever it is. And you don't want it to be like you're in a fishbowl, but so they've done some design that gives you the social distancing, gives you the ability to have the space, but also to protect you as much as possible. So long-winded way of saying, I don't think it's going to, if companies that haven't really figured it out now, they're going to soon be faced with that kind of decision. But a lot of organizations have figured it out directionally where they're going.
So, and I think that's a good point, because there's people that's figured it out. There's people that's in the process of figuring it out. And even if you happen to be one of those companies that's never put a bit of thought into this, you're going to have to, right? That's what you're saying. It's to some level.
Absolutely. I mean, the other thing too is, everybody is concerned about privacy. And I know in prior conversations, they said, how much of my information is exposed? What's, am I being watched? Is there surveillance going on? I mean, one thing to remember is the movement of your phone is typically the movement of you. And, sometimes I say that to people and they're like, oh man, I'm never carrying my phone again. But no, in reality, and that's because every phone has their own unique identifier, and every phone is pinging some kind of cell tower. So that's how they're able to, find out where people's locations are, geographically pinpoint where it is. And I'm not saying this to instill fear. I'm saying this to make you aware if you haven't thought about these kind of things. So now continuing that down privacy, I think at one point I spoke about, the California Consumer Privacy Act. Well, just this past week, Virginia passed a similar law, another privacy act. And, I would say, in my opinion, coming soon to a state near you. I think it's just a matter of time when just about all the states in our country is going to have some kind of privacy law. Privacy Act that's going to be comparable, to what California was the first one to do it, now Virginia and others.
Okay. See, it looks like Mark's got a follow-up question to what you said. Well, temporary office settings.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, even my own company, we have our own office, but then we have space that essentially we use what we call hotel space. So we go in for meetings. We have space that we would use for the day, half a day, whatever the amount of time that we need to do our business, and we get on with it. So there's definitely going to be a blend. Absolutely, there's going to be a blend. I mean, there's some companies that said, you know what, we don't need an office. We figured it out. And that was one of the biggest concerns when all of this started is, what's the risk? I mean, how do we maintain and ensure that people are truly going to be productive in this kind of environment and not going to be lax and just, hey, they're working from home, we have no control. Well, guess what? That's not the case. And in a lot of cases, they actually found out that productivity levels have actually increased. And I think some organizations were surprised by that, and others were like, no, these are the kind of people that we have as part of the organization. They understand our culture. It's now just being done in a different geographical location.
So that's interesting. So obviously the productivity, because I found and you and I have chatted about this many a time, I found myself to be much more productive, not traveling as much as I used to. Even I'm going to start some more traveling shortly. I've got some trips planned, looking forward to doing that. But this is going to drive the necessity greater, right? Because I think you've already touched on this, but I want to get this in my head a little bit because it's kind of interesting to me. If you had any security at all at your place of business, you start sending people out into their homes. Is that secure? Can you get that secure without? I mean, do you have to be a multi-billion-dollar company to have your accounts receivable person working from home, in their bedroom office, so to speak? I mean, is that cost prohibitive or is that doable?
No, that's doable, and they're making it easier and easier. So, I mean, initially, if you think about it, most of your home systems, you have some kind of antivirus on it. Now you extend it and you added some additional capability that probably through an upgrade, you have phishing protection. Then you have malware protection. And how do you connect? Well, most people do it through Wi-Fi or the internet, or they actually add a VPN to it to give that additional layer of security. How many of your routers at home actually come with some kind of firewall? And if you don't have it in your router, even the Microsoft operating system, if you're using a PC platform, has a firewall that you could use a software-related firewall. So there's added protections, but it's also, as companies continue and have migrated to this remote work environment and remote workforce, they've now built around the inherent securities that would provide the protection. Going back to what I said is that initially the work home environment, the remote workplace was not built nor optimized to be comparable to the office network or the office environment. But because of the last 12 months, it has rapidly moved to the right to catch up to it. And there's high degree of confidence to know that you're as protected. But at the same time, I don't want people to be lulled into this false sense of security, is regardless of the size of your business, and I cannot say this or stress this any more importantly, is you can't just assume that could this potentially happen to us. You have to come from the basis of, this is something that is in my life or in my business, and I have to understand what the impact might be and verify if in fact we are affected. Because that's one of the biggest things that hackers and adversaries do, is they figure out a way to gain access and they go into reconnaissance mode and they just sit there and they bide their time. It's not like, like our typical human response of, I got to do it, get in there and do something, and I have to have some kind of gratitude in a very quick period of time. I'm not going to be patient. These folks will wait 6 months, 10 months, whatever, and then launch their attack. And what is that attack? Well, they want to get access to information. But even during this period of reconnaissance, what are they doing? They're learning. They're mapping. They're mapping out what's going on. They're figuring out who's got what credentials and how can I then increase my profile and step up to get to that higher level. And what's that higher level? It's that critical information that they're trying to seek. And then they extract that. And then what do they do with the extraction of that? Then they could launch a ransomware attack. Then they could use it for extortion, any number of things.
So I'm sure that most people know, but what's a ransomware attack? I know we talked about it off air, but.
So they'll actually launch typically it's triggered by some kind of malware that's installed into your system. And then what they do is they actually encrypt all of your computer systems and encrypt all your data. And they say, Randy, in order for you to get access to any of your compute resources or any of your data for one source marketing, you need to pay me $100,000. And so a lot of companies, the current trend is, I'd say it's probably maybe 50-50, depending upon the size of the organization. And usually it's not really the smaller companies that are affected. However, that trend is continuing in that direction. So once again, for even your suppliers, don't think that you're safe because they find out that, you know what, so here's an example. I can go to a multinational company and I could launch a ransomware attack. And if I lock up your systems, you may have to pay $10-15 million. But if I go to Randy, or I can go to one of your suppliers, and if I can get 20,000 from you, but if I can do that to 10 other suppliers, now I'm sitting at 200,000. So they'll make up for it in volume. And, so adversaries are getting more clever as they go. The issues are only getting more complex, and that trend is going to continue. It's here to stay.
So are we, I say we, you people in your industry and what you do, are you staying ahead of that? Would you say I don't know if industry is the right word, but your community, are you staying ahead of it? Are you behind? Are you 50-50? Where does that fall?
No, that's a very valid question. And the adversaries are always ahead of us. It's not that so really the keys is that, and this is, once again, big corporations as well as others, what are senior executives looking for? You have to be able to identify, first discover, to learn that you've been infiltrated. Then you have to be able to identify specifically what's going on and how it's impacted. But the most important thing is you have to be able to remediate. You have to be able to figure out how do I remove this, and how do we as a going concern go forward and restore our systems and get our business operational. And then, of course, the byproduct of that is how do we prevent this from not happening again? So, to your question is, the adversaries, they're constantly pushing, and I know this is very extreme, but just recently, as late as last week, I was reading something that somebody through an email phishing campaign that they were able to launch malware. And internally within this malware, they had some kind of a Morse code that they would use to launch, their actual event. And that's something to me that it was so far, and I never heard of something like that. But am I surprised? No, because to the degree or the level that an adversary will go in order to do what they want to do nefariously, they're going to.
So based on that, if this is not a one-off thing where I'm going to go as a small business and invest $5,000, I don't know what the number is, and I'm going to put all this fancy technical stuff, right, and get protected, and then I'm good. You're just good as in until the next improvement I need to make, because myself as a business working with my security expert, I think what I'm hearing is this is an ongoing process, right? Because we've got to keep up with the new stuff that you may, as an expert, have not even thought about yet, right?
Sure.
Is that?
Yeah, I would say for every business out there, and every one of your suppliers, they should do some kind of a penetration test, vulnerability test, or risk assessment, and at least do it once a year, if not twice a year. And what that will tell you is what vulnerabilities exist. And then once you identify what they are, then you could determine, how do I remediate that? So that gives you essentially a new baseline. There's so many people, like I said, can this affect, a lot of times people say, can this affect us? And if so, how exposed are we? Well, you don't want to be that next organization, regardless of size, major corporation, small to medium business. You don't want to be that next one that says, oh my, we've been affected. How do we recover from this? And, if you're a 15, 20 person shop, if you're doing, 50, 20, 10, $5 million a year, what's the impact if you can't run your business on the compute resources and the systems that you operate, as well as the software that you run your business? You're essentially not in business until you fix that.
Right.
So you can't be lulled into that false sense of security. You have to take initiative and treat the security as you would equally as some of the major business priorities, that you run your company on.
And I would guess, George, that after the fact, you go, crap, I've just been infiltrated, for lack of a better term. A little late, right? I mean, there's things you can probably do, but you've got a mess now, right? And it's not a mess that's going to be fixed overnight, I assume.
No. What would happen is once you are infiltrated, it's you launch what they call an incident response, and you have the resources and people that come in. They're experts in that field, and they actually come in there and they determine what was done. And first, what they have to do, the very first thing is you have to mitigate the threat. You have to stop what's going on, and then once you do that, then you start. Okay, how do we recover? How do we get back to the state that we need to operate our business on a daily basis? And then you go into how to do that remediation or discovery of what it was that caused the problem. How do we then fix this going forward that it doesn't happen again? And there's a series of steps that you have to take.
Right. So cautious, careful, act early, but don't need to be paranoid and
No.
fearful. You just gotta.
You don't. That's one thing I don't want to leave anybody with is you need to be paranoid. You need to be afraid. You just need to be disciplined and smart, and think about it as whatever industry or business you're in. What are those things that are paramount for you in order to operate and conduct and transact your business? And then add security to that, but make sure that it's not an afterthought. It's not 5, 6, 7, 8 down on the list. Make sure it's now elevated to the top of the discussion.
All right. Makes sense. So I made a note, and I wanted to go back to it for a second because that is really good information right there. That's good. And I wanted to ask that because listening to you talk about it could make you pretty paranoid, right? You could sit here looking. I mean, you start looking around the room at all your stuff, going, "Crap! Is what's going on right now?" Right? It could be that because we all live, as you said. I got my goofy little phone here that I could have landed ourselves on the moon 10 times with, probably, right? I mean, comparatively. So it can be a scary scenario, but everything's only scary if you don't address it, right? And just learn. And there's experts like yourself. You operate at a high level, but there's experts out there in every community that somebody can get somebody that's probably going to offer that small business everything we need to be as safe as we can be, right? I mean,
right. Yeah, I mean, think about it. 12 months ago, maybe 18 months ago, to your listeners, if I said, "What's phishing?" more often than not, people are like, it's that, hey, let's go out to the local watering hole and cast the line. But now I say, "What's phishing?" More than likely, most of your listeners know that it's some kind of social media attempt in order to try and infiltrate that. In addition to phishing, there's going to be the next step. And the next step, it's called vishing, which is essentially phishing, but doing it through voice on your phone. So there's other ways of which to do it. And once again, like I said, as long as there's technology that's being utilized, there's going to be nefarious adversarial people that are going to try and infiltrate that. And they're going to do that for any number of reasons. They're going to try and do it for, criminal behavior, monetary gain, or once again, depending upon the type of company, the size you are, they might try to do it to extort in terms of damaging your reputation. And that's what a lot of companies are probably even more afraid of. Yes, okay, it's going to cost them money, but what's it going to do in terms of costing them their reputation? You know, they're the ones that you go home and you watch the local news, or you're in a local news, or you see pop up on CNN, XYZ company has been infiltrated, and it's like, oh, okay, and you're sitting there, it's like, man, they're an online retailer, and I just bought a bunch of stuff from them. Do they have my information? And then you start, your mind starts going. It's like, where does this end? And it's like, how am I exposed, and how is this going to affect me? And then sometimes it's happened to where that information has been used, and it has been to where your bank account has been hacked or something of that nature. Unfortunately, that's kind of the world with which we live in, and we're going to have to deal with that. It's not going away anytime soon.
Yeah. Well, it's better to know about it and deal with it than to bury your head like an ostrich. Is that what buries their head? Yeah.
Yep.
I see Eric Bam, our buddy, popped on a minute ago. I'm sure the only thing he's worried about right now is if they infiltrated his pineapple pizza. I'm sure.
Yes. There you go.
There it is.
Pizza's
there it is. Well, George, awesome information. And that went fast. 30 minutes goes quick. You're going to be able to hang on for a little added wins, and because there's a couple other things I wanted to drill a little bit deeper on. If you got another 15 minutes, if we jump off the live and come back and
absolutely
talk a couple other things. Beautiful.
Be happy,
George.
Man. Happy.
In case somebody doesn't catch the added win, any last thing you want to shout out to the folks?
I'm actually heard from a gentleman in the UK, and this is not necessarily directly related on security itself, but you could apply to business. He said, celebrate imperfection and always remember that amazing things rarely happen in your comfort zone. Just don't become complacent and stay in your comfort zone. Continuously challenge yourself, continuously, do the things that you want to continue to learn and grow. But things are going to happen. We're not perfect. So recognize it, celebrate it, move on, and then constantly, just use that dig deep button and push through whatever that that end point is of your comfort zone, and just expand it.
Brilliant. You were actually multi-levels ahead of the brilliance than I thought you were, my brother.
Well, thanks for having me, brother.
Well, thanks for being on. I appreciate it, my friend, very much. I'm sure that people are going to, it's going to, if nothing else, my goal today was to spike the awareness level with the folks that either listen in live or catch replays, to think about it. If nothing else, we did nothing else today. Just think about, have I done anything? Have I done nothing? Like you said, what's my comfort level? Maybe my comfort level is I got $12 in the bank. So if they get it, right? I mean, but you got to decide that. And if you think about it and make a determination, then we've accomplished something today, right?
Yeah. And I would really say, especially to your supplier audience, I mean, there's no shortage of probably third party suppliers that they work with. And the whole notion of managing cyber risk in that environment is really becoming the defining cybersecurity challenge of our time right now. If you think about most of the breaches and the large ones you hear, is because it happened through some kind of third party relationship. So once again, all the things that we've talked about, it's not to create fear, but it's to instill some wisdom, to have it at the highest levels of your conversation, and plan and act accordingly.
There you go. George, brilliant as I knew it would be, my brother. We're gonna close on out here. I'll have Wes toss you back in the green room. Go have a grape or two, and I'll be right over, and we'll do a little added win for release late in the week. Go down on a couple of things I made a couple notes about, if that's okay. If you got about another 15 minutes for me.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
Yep.
My brother, appreciate it, friend.
Yep.
All right, folks. George Henderson. Hopefully you got something out of that. I knew that this would be something good to bring to the table to at least talk about. As I mentioned, George is become a real brother over the last year. He and I talk often, several times a week, share wisdom, more wisdom his coming my way than mine going his, I think. But a great guy. And hope you enjoyed that. Share it out. Watch the replay. Let everybody know. I think this was really, really, really good one. We're gonna have a couple more things coming up, but so it's now for next week, or not this week, excuse me. It's Tuesday. I'm trying to get a little fast here. I've got Gary Reichert this week. Gary is a CEO and publisher. There he is of Shield Wall Media. And for everybody in my industry, Shield Wall is the publisher of 4 or 5 major magazines in the metal roofing and post frame building industry. He also promotes, I don't know if own is the right word, but promotes the Construction Roll Former Show. So we're going to chat on Thursday about publications, about where publications are, where the industry's at, and we'll chat about the upcoming Construction Roll Former Show that's been moved to June this year now. It was December in Cincinnati. So looking forward to Gary being on. And then on Tuesday of next week, I've got a good buddy of mine, young Zach Biggie. And I say young because I'm old and he's not as old, and he's better looking too. Damn, I hate that, Wes. Anyway, but Zach is a compadre of mine from the past. We worked together selling metal roofing components in the past, and he's went on to be in the real estate business now. And so we're going to talk about how what you learn in B2B, he's kind of a little more B2C, right? Business to consumer now. But the more important thing is it's still H to H, human to human, right? And we're going to chat about sales, and that sales is sales, whichever format you're going to. So looking forward to talking to Zach. And I don't know if Wes, we've got this promo up yet. If not, we won't throw it up yet. But just a shout out next Thursday, I believe at 2 o'clock, but we'll be doing some announcements. Got Adam and lost my mind for a minute. Anyways, from Best Buy Metals down in Tennessee. They're in Tennessee and South Carolina, I think, and a couple other areas. You have the promo to come. They're Best Buy Metals. These guys, what I love about them is not only are they outstanding metal roll forming operation, but they are at the top of their game virtually and training and promotions, and they just do some great stuff. So I'm looking forward to them guys being on next week on Thursday. So until then, that's all I got for now. We'll see you on Thursday for Gary, and we're going to talk a little trade show production or promotions, publicity, whatever else we talk about. So until then, remember, make this your best day ever and live it, love it, and own it. Thanks all. Cheers.